Aloha, everyone. This is Tamara Mackay with Redtime Stories here. Sorry we're a little bit late. Over here in Lahaina, and we're just kind of checking out the fire situation, and people are looking at their properties and how they're going to be able to recover. Some of the things that we've encountered being over here is businesses shut down. Right here, I'm at the Lahaina Cannery Mall, and Starbucks is closed. They have minimal use of water. So hopefully, um, as we go on and as we visit more around here in Lahaina, we will be able to give more information and updates about what is going on here. The purpose of our show here with my co-host Dan Turner is we wanted to touch a little bit on what's going on with our candidates and the Speaker of the House, and try and just give our opinions of that and what how we can do better and move forward in the state of Hawaii. So how's it going, Dan?
I'm really well. Thank you very much. I hope you've been well. I hope everyone listening has been well.
So what do you think? I mean, I know last week we had said this week we were going to talk about the presidential candidates and a couple things that have, maybe come up with the. However, recently in the recent days, this interesting turn of events has taken place in the Republican Party with the speakers of the House, and now they're
Mhm.
talking about trying to get Trump in, in that seat. What do you think about all that?
Well, it's like we had an expression, you mess with the bull, you get the horn. Kevin McCarthy knew that when he was finally appointed after 15 rounds of voting, that it could have been 25 rounds, it could have been 50 rounds. It wasn't going to happen until he was willing to capitulate to the conservative aspects of the Congress. And he did. He gave his word that he would, by virtue and risk of penalty of being removed by a single vote, a single member of the House could raise the issue of his impeachment. And for doing that, he agreed to do certain things. He did not. In fact, he gave us a lot of lip service up front with what was going on, and we got a lot of really unimportant legislation passed. But the meat and potatoes is our government is too large and it spends too much. And the money it's spending, it doesn't get from an ATM, it gets it from us. We're the ones paying for all of this. So when he made a backroom deal with the Democrat leadership of the House of Representatives, he violated that trust that he gave not Matt Gaetz and not 20 other Republicans. That was a relationship that he made with us, and he broke it. And the penalty for that deceit, and there's no other way you can look at it, it was deceit. He told us one thing, he made another. He agreed that we would not raise the legislative spending ceiling. And what did he do? He made a backroom deal with the Democrats that would allow us to continue, or allow them to continue spending money funding Ukraine. Now, I know that there are several Hawaiian legislatures, most notably one of only three Republicans in the legislature, Mr. Gene Ward, out from Hawaii Kai, who believes in funding this. And one must ask the question, is he, like the rest of the Democrat House and Senate in the federal or the United States legislature, receiving kickbacks from Sam Bankman Fried through the FTX money laundering machinery that was instigated about a year ago? Why would you want to stand there as a state legislator in the House? The lawmaking, money spending aspect of our Constitution is the House, and watch them sending billions of dollars to a war we have no dog in this fight. There's no reason for us to be involved in this. And watch as the federal government only provides $700 per family for our burned out citizens our brothers and sisters over in Lahaina, where you are now. That's corruption. I hate to say it against one of our own. And Ron Reagan said the 11th commandment, thou shalt not impugn the nature of any other Republican. Well, if you don't like it, don't do it. So I am entirely in favor of the aspect. The other one that you asked about was Donald Trump serving. They're talking about a 100-day term. That's entirely plausible. In fact, there has been support from the Democrat side of the aisle on this to have Trump in there for a period of time to get through the appointment of a new legislative leadership. And candidly, the man gets things done. And the problem that we have, state, federal, county, is that we hire people who have never done a darn thing in their lives and turned over authority over us to them, and they don't believe that they actually serve us. They believe they rule us. So the
What?
idea of somebody who is actually in a position of being productive as a servant, Donald J. Trump, is
Mm-hmm.
rather intriguing, and I would invite it wholeheartedly. I mean,
Yeah, I have to.
candidly,
I
like
have
we
to
can
agree.
do worse.
Mm-hmm. Right. I have to agree with you. I mean, he has a history of getting things done. Our economy was in the best shape that it was when he was in office. Gas prices were in line. We were prospering and moving forward. We were a respected country, and now we're the laughing stock with open borders. And we have people who are trying to kill cows because they believe it's affecting global warming. So,
And even
but
even New Yorkers are complaining about the immigrants finally.
right. Yeah. So I mean, unfortunately we have to get into a bad situation, it's like where is our rock
Mhm.
bottom? And I just hope that our rock bottom isn't too late. So what do you think there's
Yeah.
been I had a conversation just a little while ago with someone in regards to Donald Trump, and the idea of him being Speaker of the House. Is it going to be possible that he could, if he decides to do so, even though he's been indicted? Do you think that that's possible?
Well, indictments are not convictions. And yes, it is entirely possible. You do not have to be a member of the Congress constitutionally in order to serve as the speaker. The speaker doesn't vote. Speakers like the like the chairman of any other board, they simply preside. They cover, they have the agenda, manage things, push it forward. It's like the executive director of any not-for-profit or the CEO of any company. So yeah, it's entirely doable. It's a great
That's
idea, and
Yeah,
it would
that's what I thought.
actually further his campaign.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I was trying to explain. So I just wanted you to help elaborate on that. That an indictment is not a conviction. We still live in the land of the free and the Constitution, where you're innocent until proven guilty. People tend to forget
Exactly.
about that. Yeah, and
Yep.
so do you think that maybe it wasn't so much what McCarthy did or didn't do and what Gates is trying? Do you think that maybe this is a well thought out plan in order to get Donald Trump into the seat of the Speaker of the House?
If there were more than, I mean, when they voted McCarthy out, there were only 10 Republicans who did not vote for McCarthy. Matt Gaetz and uh, Chip Roy and several others that I can't remember off the top of my head. So, with that thin of a majority, it's hard to imagine them having that much groundwork set up ahead of time and then being able to execute it with such small numbers of people involved. I can't see it as a strategic effort. I think it was just somebody. Jim Jordan from Ohio is also throwing his hat in the circle for being the speaker pro tem, and he would be another excellent choice. So I think Trump just made it on the list as realistic and plausible, but they will probably and most likely use somebody who is already registered in the House of Representatives, like Jordan or whomever else pops up.
Yeah, I think Jim Jordan would be fantastic. However, you can't fantasize about the idea of Trump going in there and what he can do. If he was to get in as Speaker of the House, is there doesn't he have the power where he can move forward impeachment as well as the investigations against the Biden family?
Uh, yeah, the House is the one who, and Nancy Pelosi orchestrated two of them as Speaker of the House. So it's certainly within the purview that Trump could actually get in and impeach him. And unlike Nancy Pelosi, Trump would actually have bushel baskets of evidence of malfeasance, misfeasance, treason, sedition, espionage. I mean, they violated the Foreign Agents Act, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
The FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act. They're supposed to register if you're going to have negotiations outside the federal government with foreign nations, and they did not register. That's a big no-no. Not allowed
Yeah.
to do that.
So do you think, even considering, the possibility, do you think there's enough votes to carry to even vote Donald Trump to be in as the Speaker of the House?
Realistically, no. No, I think he would make a great showing, but the rhino aspect of the Republican Party is just too butthurt right now, having watched McCarthy. I mean, they really calculated there would not be any repercussions. They were arrogant and brazen about how they presented themselves in the House of Representatives. And if you look at some of the dour faces on the when Matt Gaetz was responding to that in the well of the House, man, it looked like a bunch of people just bit a lemon. They were unhappy and dour, sour looking people. Those are called rhinos. They're Democrats who ended up in the Republican Party, and they talk out of the Republican side of their mouths, but they vote straight ticket Democrat, and
So
they are a malignancy.
yeah, so if we take the idea of Donald Trump being out of the Speaker of the House and so forth, which would be great. But if we took that aspect out of there and looking at this from the outside, I mean, don't you think that this is kind of a taints the Republican Party and kind of affects the success moving forward, or not? Um, it's
I
validating that we're in trouble and we have a lot of internal conflict without being able to work
Yes,
together in our party.
we have a huge problem, and I think it goes more along corruption lines than ideological lines. The the big shocking thing that I see, or actually I don't see, is the Republicans in the House of Representatives who are not jumping up and down screaming about all the violations of our individual First Amendment rights for petition of the government, for freedom of speech, freedom of press. We've seen all of these things happening, and the rhinos have done nothing about that. The Republican Party leadership in the Senate would be Mitch McConnell, among others. They didn't say a word, not a word. And so there is a schism in the Republican Party. However, that is made problematic by the conservative aspect, who is quite literally in the position to kick them, drag them, kicking and screaming into legislation that makes sense. Because unlike 15 years ago, we're not asleep anymore. Everybody, anybody can go online and watch C-SPAN. You can watch all kinds of shows and that are not alphabet news, and get realistic information in time, in present day. And you can get it from several different divergent sources, and you can make up your own mind. And that's what people are doing. And they're calling their congressmen, and they're letting them know in
Yeah.
droves that they can't handle the calls anymore. So
Yeah, which is what we need to keep doing and putting on the pressure. Do you think that this
it,
is really a
it's
smart
working,
move?
folks.
Yeah. Do you think it is a smart move to remove McCarthy at this time?
Absolutely. It's necessary, because what word is your good what what good is your word if you're not even willing to keep it? McCarthy made his deal with Matt Gaetz. What
Mm,
kind of leader is Matt Gaetz if he does not pull the trigger on his own negotiations? McCarthy defaulted. He defaulted. He lacks character. He lacks integrity. He lied multiple
mm,
times to us. They are raising the spending cap because McCarthy did a deal with the Democrats around our backs and hoped that Gates wouldn't find. Well, of course, Gates found out.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's it's an idea of dividing that which is tactical versus those things that are necessary.
Right.
Because win or lose, you can't abide tyranny in any form. And
Uh-huh.
people who can lie to your face and stay in their positions are tyrants.
Yeah, we know what that looks like for sure here in Hawaii. So what do you
Boy,
think
do we.
yeah, what do you think about if Jim Jordan gets in?
I am I'm from Ohio. Okay. I don't know Jim Jordan, and I just know him because he talks a lot like I do.
Right.
But I think that it's a good and a bad thing. It's great because man, he kicks butt and he does not suffer fools lightly, and he
Mm-hmm.
would run a tight ship. But who would take over the judicial? I mean, it's like
Right.
he's running things like a finely tuned engine, and if you become speaker, you can't serve in that office capacity anymore. So someone else has to pick up the charge. But
Who do you think would be
as far
good?
um, as far as a fill-in for that, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene would be wonderful in that position because she has been a gadfly to the Biden administration since she took the chair or took her chair. Um, just as one example, another one that comes to my mind that could be very effective in there would be Chip Roy from Texas. Another one could be uh, Clint. He's from Louisiana. I can't remember his name, but he's another one who's very forthright. And these are people who have backbone, they have character, and they have capacity. And they're, if you, I've been watching them since they took office, and it's remarkable how quickly they've picked up on the ropes. They know what they're doing, and they see that they're surrounded by people who would be good counsel for them as well. So it's like pick one, just pick one, we'll be fine. I like the guy that they put in there in the intermediate, the Patrick Henry McHenry guy. His first act was to kick Nancy Pelosi out of that hidden office that they had that she had been holding as the speaker, and she's not the speaker. That should have been Kevin McCarthy's office because he is the legitimate speaker. But as a quid pro quo deal, McCarthy, and this is another reason why he's no longer Speaker of the House, McCarthy made a deal with Nancy Pelosi that she could take his office and occupy it, and he would hold a lesser office, and that she would support him and have his back from the Democrat side. She would act like a Republican whip in the Democrat Party. And again, there may be circumstances where that's a good deal for the Republican Party, but candidly, the players are all wrong and the game is just set against us. It's twisted.
Yeah. When they try and be strategic, I mean, sometimes you think, is it being strategic or is it trying to act like it's
Well,
strategic to
it's
cover your
tactical.
intent? Yeah.
The difference
Yeah.
between strategic and tactical is strategic works for everybody. The
Right.
high tide lifts all boats is a strategic element. A tactic is something you use against another person, entity, or organization. So that is by definition a one-sided arrangement where you have a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
And I
So
think McCarthy was being tactical, not strategic
So,
with
what do you
Pelosi.
think about this? Especially with now into because we talked about the Speaker of the House and the idea that they just threw out there with Donald Trump as the Speaker of the House. So, what about regarding the indictment? A lot of people don't understand clearly what's going on, but Donald Trump is still on the campaign trail, running for
Mhm.
president. So with that being said, do you think that there's any chance? I saw an article that they're really trying to get him off the ballot. How is it able to happen?
Well, it's not plausible. In fact, the Supreme Court has already shot that one down. A gentleman an attorney from Texas who's running for president filed a case that demanded that Trump be removed from the ballot under uh, Amendment number 14, Article 3. And it says that if you've ever been charged with insurrection, that you are ineligible from holding public office. While I agree with that, I don't agree with the definition of insurrection. It was
Mm-hmm.
not. And I also don't agree that Donald Trump has been convicted of insurrection. And just as you said in the beginning of the show, you are innocent until proven guilty, and in a court of law, not in an inquisition, which is what the January 6th Commission was. It was not even a legitimate court. In fact, when they made referrals to have Trump arrested and charged with actual crimes, the Department of Justice refused to even hear it. So that is not the basis of law that works in that regard. So there is no basis to keep him off the ballot. And here's the bottom line. If they found a way, whether it's through these multiple 90 some lawsuits or through Article 14 or any other contrivance they can come up with, you will witness the single most largest write in ballot candidacy in the history of this nation. He'll win on write in votes. If you take him off the ballot, they'll write his name in there and you'll have no choice. And that what they haven't thought that through is that a write in ballot does two things. It verifies the signature on the outside of the envelope with the actual signature of the voter, and it makes it impossible to not count the vote. So let them
So
try.
yeah. So you made an interesting point there with the write-in votes and they have to count the vote. How can we ensure with the history of election integrity questions and issues that we ensure that those will be counted?
Well, in Hawaii, where we have to, that really has to be the basis of our concern, we have a problem in that the state legislature violated our state constitution, and they've had a pattern of this. The first time was when Governor Abercrombie the zombie, uh, just assumed lawmaking authority under emergency proclamation. You saw Green use it in Lahaina, as a matter of fact, that he was going to be able to do all kinds of things because on July 17th, he signed an emergency proclamation that, oops, actually became real on August 8th. And the first thing they did after Abercrombie the zombie took power is that they then granted it again to Ige, and then they codified it. Now, the embarrassing part of codification is when the legislature votes a law that changes the constitutional right of the legislature. Article 1, Section 1 in the federal Constitution declares that all law originates in the House and the Senate, in Congress. Article 7 says legislation spending comes from the House. So Article 4 of the Constitution states that every level of governance in the United States at all levels shall be a reflection of the U.S. Constitution and its amendments. And that's a guarantee made to the United States citizens. In order for you to change that, where you ceded power over to Ige through a law passed through the legislature is unconstitutional because you have to amend the Constitution in order to have the authority to grant him powers that are retained specifically to the House of Representatives. They did not do that. They just simply said, "Oh, we're scared. Here, take all the power you want, make all the laws you want." And at the end of Ige's term, they went back with another law and said, "Mr. Ige, sir, if you wouldn't mind, could we have our lawmaking authority back, please, sir? Please, please." And he said, "Nah, I think I'll keep it." Proving once again that powers lost are powers lost. Once you give them up, you're not going to get them back, not
Yeah.
without a fight. The other
How are,
problem that you have, let me
go ahead.
cover the other problem that you have with this is, oh, I lost my thought. Talk
Sorry.
too much. It'll come back to me. Go right ahead.
No, I was just going into the what is our responsibility as citizens and voters? What can we do to ensure this happens? I mean, one of the things I can speak to is, of course, joining the
Absolutely.
is with joining election integrity groups. There's Audit the
Yes.
Vote. They're doing an amazing job, and they're involved to try and ensure uh,
Uh-oh. Lost it, Tam. I remember what I was going to say. You're muted. What I was going to say, just in case there's other people out there. The other thing that we did wrong is when we unconstitutionally changed the methodology of our voting to one of mail-in ballots. That's actually a law on the books, and that too needed to be an amendment to the Constitution because the Constitution addresses the time and place that election day falls, first Tuesday of every fourth year for a general election. That's not what happened, is it? We had mail-in ballots. Well, we had COVID. Well, the Constitution was given direct uh, authority that it will always be the purview of the Constitution to determine this. People don't get to just randomly come up with a reason to suspend the Constitution. You don't have the authority legislatively to do that. And that's why you saw the overturn of Roe versus Wade, was because the judicial branch is not a law-making branch. They did not have the authority under Norma Roe versus Wade to say, you know what, we're going to make it legal in the United States to have abortion. Well, no, that's not your authority. If you want to have that nationally, then what you need to do is either go by states' rights under the 10th Amendment, and every state can vote as to whether or not it's going to have abortion or to what degree they're going to have abortion, and then you vote with your feet. If you don't like the rules in your state, go find another state. There's 49 other ones, and if that doesn't make you happy, you can go live in a territory. You don't have the authority to just make law and do an end run around Congress to get your stuff passed. I don't know the general age of the audience, but I can tell you I was alive and kicking in 1973, and probably around 65-70% of our population was in a church someplace or a synagogue someplace every Sunday morning. We were an extremely diligent and committed society when it came to the Christian faith. And the idea that the legislature would be able to pass a law through both houses and the executive branch and have it validated by the judicial branch that made abortion legal is nonsense. Not happening. The only way that was going to happen would be through executive fiat of the judicial branch. They just simply made up a law and said, this is the way it is, folks. And we've seen judicial activism for quite some time now. It's immoral. It does not fit in a constitutional republic. There she
Yeah,
is.
I know. Thank you. I could hear you in the background. It's a little bit of a connection, but you were still going on, and I'm glad you always have
Just
some good
just filling in
information.
dead air.
Yeah, no, you're doing good. Just So I apologize to everybody, the in and out over here in Lahaina. So, so some questions too are those people in who do you think maybe be close to giving Donald Trump a run for their money as far as a viable candidate?
God, if God could run, yeah, God would
Gotcha.
win.
I thought at first I thought you were like, oh
But there's,
God, I don't know. Yeah,
but no, I don't see anybody in the. I saw the one
that's
Vivek
worthwhile.
Ramaswamy doing push-ups or something like that to prove his suitability and virility as president of the United
Lord.
States, and I thought, I remember when I was his age and I could do push-ups too. But I
Right.
don't think
So,
that qualifies. He's of the people in the field other than Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy probably has the greatest potential and credentials to occupy the office. He's the one that is closest to Trump. We see
okay.
uh, what's his name? DeSantis is falling like a stone with a parachute, but
Yeah.
it's still a stone. And the other people have just not taken the hint. This is
Right.
Trump's election to lose. And you can continue spending your money. God bless you. But, I see people I would love that I have high regard. Robert Kennedy, I
Uh
think,
huh.
is a profoundly good man, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't vote for him because he's not
Okay.
Trump. He doesn't have the chops. We need, forgive the term, we need a ball buster. We
Yeah.
don't need a get along. We need to clean house. We have huge, huge integrity problems in our government. And people who have friends are not going to get the job done. We need people who have nothing but enemies. Those people are used to fighting and they won't quit until their pulse quits. And that's
Yeah.
Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, we know about that. You know, when you, like what my husband always says, chlorine only works, only smells when it's working. So we know that it's familiar when you get over when you get over the target and people go after you. I
Yes.
definitely can speak first-handed about that, especially with recent attacks at me that
Yes.
from people who claim that they're Republicans, but they're definitely doing. They're trying to help. It seems like they're helping out the Democrats, which is pretty shameful. But anyways, I don't even
I
want to
don't,
give yeah, I don't even want to give them any airtime. But
yeah.
I want to go ahead and do a little moment of for our sponsor, and then come back and let's before we end. We still have a few more minutes, but I wanted to talk about some ideas that people have been throwing out about. Okay, let's say if Donald J. Trump did win the presidential caucus in March and the primary, who would be a good vice chair candidate for him? Let's talk about that after we hear from our sponsor, Be Nourished.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours, be nourished.
All right. Thank you for being nourished, for being an amazing partner in the community and giving great products. Don't forget to enter Liberty when you're checking out and get your 22% off. So, this is pretty interesting. This is the first time I've done our show off of my phone remotely. So, am I coming through okay?
Yes, you're remarkably
Oh,
clear. We can see
wow.
you quite well. Beautiful sky and nice tree behind you, and your Goldilocks and everything is just where it's supposed to be.
Thanks. And you can hear the sirens in the back as well, right? Or no?
No, I can't. I
Oh,
can't
wow.
hear it. I don't
Okay.
know. I
Yeah,
don't know if our guests can
we'll make
hear, but
sure. We'll make sure though that when I do more remotes like this, I think this is such a great idea, and I'll try and start talking to people on location, and you can help co-host when and facilitate that as well as we move on. Um, so back to our conversation, because people are really, you know, with the presidential candidates, they're submitting their forms and their necessary funds to every state to be considered on the ballot. So talk has been said about potential vice chair candidates, and of course, everybody just likes to focus on Donald Trump. Everybody pretty much is secondary. Who do you think? I can give you a couple of my thoughts would be good running mates for Donald Trump. Like, I really
go
like
for it.
I really like Carrie Lake
I do
from
too.
Arizona. Yeah. So what's your thoughts about that? What would be a good strategic vice president
Well,
for Donald Trump
I
to run
think
with?
I think Carrie is going to run for the Senate, and I think she has her heart set on that now. And
Hmm.
the sad thing about her campaign is that the judges in Arizona are so corrupted that
Mm.
the um, the guy who is running for the state AG who lost by 260 votes or whatever, Abe, whatever, Ebemadian or whatever,
Hmm.
they just can't catch a break. And the judges are intentionally slow walking this. A
Hmm.
judge can just tell the bailiff, do this, do it now, and by the end of the day, it's done. But that's not what they're doing. They're very methodical, more than necessary. And I think that we're unfortunately approaching the halfway point of a 4-year term with Katie Hobbs being in office, and that you have to pick your battles in life. And I think that Kari Lake might be looking at abandoning that because she's not going to be able to get anywhere. And she's getting to the point that if you're going to run for Senate, you need to make up your mind. It's time to poop or get off the pot. We're either going to run the Senate or we're going to run the state. And if you do win, you're looking at being the governor for 6 months before it's election time again. So I think that her primary point would be to be the replacement for Kristen Sinema, because Sinema is running as an independent, and that helps the Republican Party because it divides the Democrat Party. And so she'd be a natural fit. I don't think there'd be any way that they could mathematically cheat enough to keep her out of that Senate seat. And I think she'd be an outstanding senator. She's certainly not afraid to speak her mind and say intelligent things. When she opens her mouth, smart things fall out. Unlike Nancy.
Yeah, she's a pretty tough cookie. I really admire her, and of course Dr. Kelly Ward. Um, but what do you think about the idea? A lot of people were saying, you know, Tulsi Gabbard needs to make a decision because she might be a good vice chair candidate for Donald Trump as well. What do you think about that?
I don't. Um, I know I've met Mike Gabbard, and I have the highest regard for him, not just because of how he lives his life now, but because of and how the way he has lived his life for the past 40, 50 years. He's a very good man. And Tulsi's dad is, that old expression, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, is very true here. I think that um, it may be that Tulsi was just going through growing stages when she was a socialist. And maybe now that she's actually seen socialism, that she has a different viewpoint on it. She has abandoned the Democrat Party. I just don't think that she's going to have the national traction necessary to get by guys like not only Bill Maher on HBO, but she's not going to get by O'Reilly. She's going to have a hard time with Hannity. And most of the pundits who control the conservative dialogue are not going to be very receptive for her because of those things. But can she do the job? Absolutely. What I think is that Tulsi would make a better senator if,
Hmm.
in fact, Trump taps Carrie Lake on the shoulder to be his VP, that Tulsi would be a shoe in at the Senate. Oh,
You know,
excuse me. I'm sorry. That was wrong. She's in Hawaii, and I've crossed my wires here, and I said something dumb. Excuse me, folks. Tulsi would be a good candidate for Hawaiian Senate uh, for whoever's coming. I think Crazy Maisie is up on the block next.
that's what I was going to say is going in and taking Maisie's seat. What about, so
And
another thought was, what if
she's
RFK
been Crazy May has been picking her seat for the last 6 years
right,
anyway. So go ahead. I'm
right.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. Another thought that people have thrown out there is if RFK jumped the boat on the Democrat Party, and what do you think of if he did that about a vice presidency?
He's a Democrat,
Right,
and
but if he left the Democrat Party and and crossed over to the left, let's just say he left the dark side of the force and came to our side, you know?
well, the Democrat Party left him decade as it left.
Yeah.
I grew up a Democrat, and one day I realized I had some dealings with the IRS, and I realized that when I was angry and compelling, yeah, we need to tax those rich business owners, and all of a sudden I was a business owner. It didn't matter that I wasn't rich, and that I had brought this upon myself by
Hmm.
participating in that kind of anger voting. Um, it's I I don't see Robert Kennedy as working well with Trump because they're both very strong-minded, and
Yeah.
they are not the same politically. They do. Robert Kennedy's main uh, point of popularity has been his advocacy against the vaccine programs and the government tyranny that we've witnessed here. And just on an aside, people, let's stop referring to it as the COVID thing. It's the government thing. COVID is jealous of the Hawaiian government. COVID came ripping in off the east side of our islands, acting like Hurricane Derby, 500-mile wide storm, just screaming about how it's going to maim, kill, and destroy, hits our island, and Mauna Loa just completely unwound it. And it was like, oh, pardon me, sir, excuse me, let me go around. And it went up and dumped everything on Honolulu. But sufficient to say, you can't have that kind of, uh, never mind.
We get the point, right?
Thank you. Yes, it,
So
it ends up
yeah,
being problematic.
it is, yeah. So I also wanted to touch on too before we left. How about this? The idea of Roseanne Barr running for governor of the state of Hawaii.
I all I know about, well, I know quite a bit about her. She lives on Big Island, doesn't she?
Yes, yes, she does.
Yeah, strike one. Um, the population center of 1 point whatever it is over here in Honolulu is not going to support that.
Hmm.
The unfortunate point is that the tail does wag the dog here. We all, the territorial islands that surround Honolulu, we feed, support, and sustain Honolulu, but we don't get reciprocation from Honolulu as the states that take care of them. There's a great disparity. They don't even bother saying thank you. So I my first impression from her, unfortunately, is when she grabbed her crotch and spat when she was singing the national anthem. And I don't know who put her microphone in her hand in the first place, but that was a gross mistake of judgment on both parties. And we all make mistakes, and so I've let that go. However, I also know she did an interview that was actually on YouTube where she interviewed the the Michigan madman. Um, oh boy, I can't remember. He's a rock star. Literally, he's a rock star. I can't remember his Ted Nugent, the Motor
Okay.
City Madman.
Yeah.
She interviewed him and they talked about guns. And she was a socialist at that time and came in with her hardline commentary and opinions on guns and evil and everything like that. And Ted Nugent took her apart. I felt bad for her, but that was her epiphany moment. That was her wake up call. All of a sudden, she was put in a position to having to reason through her politics, just like many Hawaiians now are being forced to reason through their politics because now they've seen two circumstances of their government in action and it ain't pretty. You know, COVID was like, I'm going to kill this is what I was going to say before. COVID was like, I'm coming to Hawaii, I'm going to beat everybody's ass. And Ige said, Here, hold my beer and watch this. And COVID was jealous of Ige because Ige showed how incompetent COVID was at killing people and destroying things. And now you see the same thing out of Josh Mengele, Dr. Mengele Green, who forced inoculations on children. We now have myocarditis, pericarditis, and thrombosis and everything else under the sun that we never had before. At one time, our obituaries increased by a factor of 3 after the inoculations. And now we have VAIDS, a new term, vaccine AIDS, that has started hitting people with 3 or more inoculations, which goes back to Prince Harry, back in 2021-22, who said in his best British drawl, well, those of us who have had 3 or more inoculations should probably consider getting an AIDS test. And he was right.
But that, so, speaking of, Mr. Green, it's hard to call him, call
Dr.
anybody
Mengele.
governor, when they, uh, with all due respect. But anyways, how about his interview where he was crying about, they hurt my feelings because they called me an effing Howley, him and his wife. How about that?
Well,
Did you see that?
no, I didn't. But you know what? Newsflash, I'm an effing Holly. Can't help it. Sorry, guys. See, it's still white. Gets a little pinkish, but it's just white. If that's the thickness, some people need to worry more about the thickness of their skin than the color of it. And Mr. Green ignores all the stupid things he says and does and gets upset. He like gags on gnats while he swallows camels whole. But that being upset about being Holly and people picking on him it's juvenile, it's an immature thing. I think in that regard, Roseanne would be a lot tougher than Josh Green. And now
Oh
the
yeah,
smart
I think
than Josh Green.
Roseanne, had an awakening. She's got a podcast going on. It's actually pretty good, pretty entertaining, and
Yes,
yeah, Josh Green. I'm sorry, but he. I think he's an embarrassment to the state of Hawaii, and the tyranny is just going to be
he's
the
just
end of
more of the
Hawaii if we can't. Yeah, if we can't.
You know,
If we can't.
you keep voting for Democrats expecting something different. And that is also the parallel definition of insanity. You keep doing the same things election after election, expecting different outcomes, and all it does is drive you further into the ground. You have to
Yeah,
change your
yeah.
habits.
Exactly. That's, conversations that I've been having lately, and the recent position that I got voted into is that, people are coming up, well, this is the way we did this, and this is the way we did that, and we have to do that. And I'm like, no, because doing that is again 50 years of losing. Actually, I think it's 60 years of losing. When are we going to get off the insanity circle and start thinking from a different perspective? And
We have
I don't.
computers,
Yeah.
people.
Hmm.
There's no
Besides,
reason
yeah,
for us to, we do make changes when it benefits a bureaucrat or you know, somebody who depends on public largesse. They're all favor for that then. But just as a
yeah.
general practice, no, we can't afford to give up 63 years of nonstop Democrat rule in both houses.
Well, we
No, you
definitely
can't.
need to get, yeah. we definitely need to get our boots on the ground and start focusing on winning elections from our grassroots and
Mhm.
working it from the bottom up, because our citizens need to, get out of their armchairs and quit being armchair quarterbacks. It's time to rise and have a vote, have a voice, do something about election integrity. We can talk here all day about fabulous candidates, but what good is it going to do if we can't ensure a fair election? We're still going to lose. So it's every one of our responsibility to help with voter rolls, holding the office of elections, accountable, and making sure we demand justice, and doing in-person balloting just like we did. I find it totally um, uh, unexcusable how, when we're not voting in person, it's turned into voting months, when we used to
Yeah.
vote in person with handwritten ballots, but we were able to do it in a day. So how is that with technology it takes longer, is beyond me. So the only way that that happens is if you are working diligently to rig the elections. I mean, come on. If
Yeah.
my the motto of my show is truth has no fear. And so if they're not afraid, then let's just do it the old way that has worked. And I think we need to
Yes.
take our voting back down to the precincts and do in-person
Yep.
voting. I know that
That's right.
that would re-excite the base and get people involved, as long as they knew that we had a chance of a fair election. The Democrats don't want to have a fair election because they know that they would lose. They've done so much harm to the people, especially in the state of Hawaii.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm here in Lahaina today, is to look at what is really going on. I did a visit last week with House Representative Elijah Pyrick, and it was very eye-opening to hear more testimonies, and that Josh Green and even the representatives here in Maui County. Um, um, Representative Pyrick is not in a Maui County representative, but he was very
No.
diligently listening. He was open armed. He and the people were very, very happy that he listened to him, and I gained a lot of respect for him after that. The sad thing is that
Yes.
the government, the governor, are working so hard against these people getting in their houses instead of accommodating to go back and rebuild their homes. But they're missing the importance of the schooling, making sure that there are proper plans in place for the children to feel safe back in school, with exit plans, emergency plans, increased teacher pay. The teachers are not quite ready to go back to school either. They're still, suffering from PTSD regarding their experience with their schools burning down, and
Mhm.
to not be responsible in the process and be accommodating for the people. Moving people out of hotels into tents is absolutely disgusting in my book, and I think we
Yes.
can do better. The government can do better for the citizens of Hawaii. Um,
You know,
so
they
it's
could have
just
had a
absolutely
fleet of
heartbreaking.
bulldozers. They could have had a fleet of bulldozers going down Front Street, moving all of that stuff, and they'd have most of the footers could be laid out by now.
Yeah.
You're quiet, can't hear.
Oh.
But there, nobody's lifted a finger. Nobody has a shovel ceremony for breaking ground. Nobody's doing anything. They're putting up vision barriers because they don't want you to see anything, which that
Hmm.
makes me suspicious automatically. And no matter how the fire started, I got to tell you, anywhere else in the United States, the insurance companies would be breaking their necks to pay
Hmm.
claims. They would. I haven't heard anybody collecting anything on any claim at this point. It's like they're just sitting on their hands because nobody's forcing them to, because again, the new codes are going to rule how these places are rebuilt. And, there's a lot of problems that are going to go along with that. So,
Hmm.
understanding that there's going to be challenges, there's no leadership out of Josh Mangala Green in overcoming any of this because it's against his agenda to do so. Josh Green wants to take that land and make a memorial park out of it over the living who have homesteads there. That
Right.
that should be the first priority. You build a park on your own damn time. We've got people living in their cars for crying out loud, and you're worried about building a park.
Right.
That's
This
insane.
is, yeah. So this is where we kind of come full circle again regarding the poor management of the opposition of the party, and we need to ensure that we start getting really good candidates in, stepping up and not being afraid, and ensuring that we have election integrity. Um, so we're running out of time, and so I just wanted to thank you again, and we need to continue these types of conversations. I think they're very
Yeah.
important, along with the solutions like you with financial investment being secure. We should also try and focus on sustainability and how a lot of and more of how people can get involved, especially with election integrity. We really have to push that narrative, in motivating people to being part of the solution, and sitting back and watching the problem continue to take over. So before
Yeah.
we go ahead and sign off, maybe just give a minute closing thought.
Yeah. Doing nothing is no longer an option, people. You
Hmm.
know, all we hear if you come here is the stories of the warrior Hawaiian. You know how they took over Maui and they did this and that photo, that painting of the 8 Hawaiian warriors with their clubs running through the field, running towards the attack. Where is that? Where are those Hawaiians? You
Hmm.
know, where are the people who have a vested interest in how this is run? Where are you? Why is it so easy? And you blame it on, well, you know, my ancestors worked on sugar plants and we weren't allowed to say, well, you are now. You got people who came here from other lands and they just simply aren't assimilating. You're in America. Even though Hawaii says, oh, you're not exactly in America. You're in the 50th state, so we get to do what we want. No, they don't. You're the ones in charge. Take a grip. Do it now.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, thank you. And I thank everybody for tuning in. I apologize for being late and trying to get hooked up here in Lahaina. And we hope that we can focus more on what's going on here on Maui and the follow up. And please don't forget about those who have been affected by the fires. Thank you for all the
you.
well wishes to me. We have recovered at our house. But it's nothing compared to what the people here in Lahaina have faced, and they still need help. We need the economy to be to keep going. And the way to do that is we don't have to totally depend on tourism at this time, because we still need time to heal. What people can do is send in gift cards, gas cards, food cards,
That's right.
or even gift certificates, so that families can go out and have a nice dinner and take a break from the sad times that they are facing. Maybe even
Yeah.
gym memberships, so that they can go and be healthy. There's so many creative
Good
kinds of
thought.
gift certificates that would be so beneficial, even massages or even
Mhm.
counseling gift certificates. There's so many different things that people don't
Yes.
think of how we can improve the lives of those who have been affected by the devastation here on Maui. There's the Calvary
And the one
churches. Go ahead.
I'm s- one of the biggest things that we need to keep in mind in our gifting to our brothers and sisters here is that we have hundreds of small businesses that are struggling to survive.
Yes.
So if you're going to give a card, make it a Visa gift card so that anybody, we can help take care of these small local businesses and keep them afloat. Because you got to know how bad it's hurting for them. They are
Yes.
struggling to feed their families and they depend on
Absolutely.
themselves. They don't work for the state. They don't work for the county. They don't have a full pension. They don't have
Mhm.
paid benefits. They're struggling to stay
Yes.
afloat. Help them
Absolutely.
with a Visa gift card.
Absolutely. And just keep this in the back of your head. The Calvary churches, to which the Hawaii Republican Party donated $1,205 to ensure that they would distribute the funds to those in need and help with school supplies or whatever that the families needed at this time. But please consider the gift cards, and just like what Dan said, the small businesses with the Visa cards, or calling them directly, so that we can support them to stay alive, and so that they can continue to service the people and provide an income for their families, because we're all affected. we are all affected, because if we didn't lose our home, we know somebody who has lost their home, lost their business, lost their family members, and there's still children that need to be found. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody for joining. Thank you again, Dan, and we'll see you next week at Thursday at 3 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. And remember everybody, the only way that we can be successful is if we work together. So with that said, I appreciate everybody. We'll see you next week. And remember, the truth has no fear.